You, a 41-year-old man, David Davids. You are writing a book called Bucket Detective. Book is not good. Truthfully, you not care about write book. You not even like read books because reading gives headache from make think too hard. You are married to wife who is abusive. By abusive, you mean she not do perverted sex whenever demanded. To get perverted sex, you approach girls in street, but they not give it and instead call you creep and pig. This is why you is writing Bucket Detective. Famous book make it impossible for girls to resist sex, especially glasses girls at nearby community college. At dinner with friend of yours who have recent success in business, you say, "Writing book is hard. Is there not easy way to write great book?" Friend of yours smile with mischief and says, yes there is. He hand you card with address and say, "Go here and do what asked of you." In exchange, you will get what is desire, and if you not like, you leave any time. You not think more than 1 second to decide this is plain, because it's much simpler than create good words on empty page. So, one cold and rainy morning, you arrive at address and enter front door.
Hi, my name is Gwen Sleeveless. I'm a 23-year-old white male, and I'm the building's maintenance man, cook, and I also clean the toilets. I thought it would be nice if once the Dark Lord is reborn to bring in 10,000 years of terror, if people could visit the place where it all began, kind of like a museum to the origin of their torment. So I've installed these boxes, which I call Gwen boxes, all over the building to explain the significance of different areas. Obviously, since the Dark Lord Mishriel, the seven-tongued slayer of kings, the roaster of the innocent, the defiler of the damned has yet to rise, these Gwen boxes are kind of a work in progress. Hi, my name is Gwen Sleeveless. I'm a 23-year-old white male, and I'm the building's maintenance man, cook, and I also clean the toilets. I thought it would be nice if once the Dark Lord is reborn to bring in 10,000 years of terror, if people could visit the place where it all began, kind of like a museum to the origin of their torment. So I've installed these boxes, which I call Gwen boxes, all over the building to explain the significance of different areas. Obviously, since the Dark Lord Mishriel, the seven-tongued slayer of kings, the roaster of the innocent, the defiler of the damned has yet to rise, these Gwen boxes are kind of a work in progress. These are the offices of the two fathers, Dr. Z.W. Francis and Jedediah Holcomb, who were the founders and leaders of our happy little... I almost said cult, but it's a religion. There is a difference. The fathers believed that they were in fact one being that had been divided into two bodies for fear that if one being had so much knowledge, power, and sexual charisma, the universe would be torn into shreds. So to keep that great power separated, the fathers worked without ever meeting face-to-face or speaking aloud to one another. Instead, they communicated by passing letters through the mail slot between their offices. It was in this way that they laid down the laws of Mishriel, the god among gods, the Gemp in the graveyard, the pus of Xanadu. Jedediah Holcomb, known as the Mystic, was a hypnotist, psychologist, poet, meditation guru, and expert on world religions. His most significant work was the unification of all major religious texts to place the Dark Lord himself at the center. Yes, everyone from Jesus Christ to the Buddha were in fact pawns of Mishriel, the breather of bile, the decapitator of slaves, the withholder of orgasms. Dr. Z.W. Francis, known as the Scholar, was a mathematician, physicist, biologist, inventor, painter, and most importantly, a medical doctor specializing in the female reproductive system. He was the first physician to do a deep study of the female body, from a medical perspective, of course. And had the fools in the medical establishment not misinterpreted his work and taken away his license to practice medicine, the writings and tools he developed would be the cornerstone of modern gynecology. February 18th, the fathers delivered their seed to the holy female vessel and then died of simultaneous heart attacks. Their bodies were cremated and their ashes preserved in urns while their souls were released into the building, so that upon the Dark Lord's rebirth, they would be one with Mishriel, the putrid prince, the horn of Babel, the apple among the corn. With the rebirth of the Dark Lord soon to come, the fathers needed to be certain which of their followers were true believers, so they constructed a challenge called the Believer's Waltz. The fathers then sat in the chairs on this stage and telepathically delivered the precise steps required to complete the waltz. Those who completed the waltz were to be blessed with the gifts of the Dark Lord, while those who could not were locked away to die.
The thing that sucks about pain is that it hurts, so you decide to leave before you get any more. When arrive home, wife asks why you was missing body parts, but you not tell her because, seriously, why women always need to talk so much. You work more on Bucket Detective, but it no longer worth it when you find out some girls say yes to sex if given money. They not too pretty and one give poison to your bedroom parts, but they is pervert when paid enough. You sell desk and computer and car to pay for sex, but after several months, things to sell run out. Wife, of course, she gone by now, and you realize maybe you like her more than you thought. On TV there is talk of great war that is coming, but oh well, best not to pay attention to things that not completely have to do with you. You, a 41-year-old man, David Davids. You are writing a book called a 41-year-old man.
Dr. Z.W. Francis, known as the Scholar, was a mathematician, physicist, biologist, inventor, painter, and most importantly, a medical doctor specializing in the female reproductive system. He was the first physician to do a deep study of the female body, from a medical perspective, of course, and had the fools in the medical establishment not misinterpreted his work and taken away his license to practice medicine, the writings and tools he developed would be the cornerstone of modern gynecology. Jedediah Holcomb, known as the Mystic, was a hypnotist, psychologist, poet, meditation guru, and expert on world religions. His most significant work was the unification of all major religious texts to place the Dark Lord himself at the center. Yes, everyone from Jesus Christ to the Buddha were in fact pawns of Mishriel, the breather of bile, the decapitator of slaves, the withholder of orgasms. On February 18th, the fathers delivered their seed to the holy female vessel and then died of simultaneous heart attacks. Their bodies were cremated and their ashes preserved in urns while their souls were released into the building, so that upon the Dark Lord's rebirth, they would be one with Mishriel, the putrid prince, the horn of Babel, the apple among the corn.
great. I'm sorry, my child. Though your devotion has been great, you have shown yourself to be a fake. Deliver yourself to the cage at the far end of the room, but do not despair. Your death will be slow and painful, and your loved ones will soon forget you. I'm sorry, my child. Though your devotion has been great, you have shown yourself to be a fake.
I wasn't sure if I'd do this, but I thought visitors might want to know more about me, their humble guide, Gwen Sleeveless. So let's see. My parents died when I was 2. I was sexually abused by the man who ran my orphanage, and I used to burn my face with cigarettes to get attention. Pretty standard stuff. I was 14 when I ran away, and 18 when the fathers took me in and gave me this bed, which they graciously placed under a leaky pipe to strengthen my mental strength, which they said I had none of. When I'm not cleaning toilets, I write songs about the fathers, I draw pictures of the fathers, and I pray to the fathers. As you can tell, I'm a pretty lucky guy.
With baby in hand, you stumble into street and pass to unconscious. You wake up in hospital with caring wife at side, and her smile make you feel annoyed. Hospital people heal you and give you wooden finger, arm, and return you home. Wife is so desperate for love, she not ask where baby come from, but keep it and raise it his own. At first, you think baby cute, but now it only eat and scream and poop, and you regret take with you. Friend of yours that tell you about the house is much angry, say you ruined everything. You say that followers of Mishrael is broken up, and few that remain now selling t-shirts at mall. Your life not much good either. Basically just watch TV game shows and touch fiddlestick when wife out buying groceries. You consider to divorce wife, but then you must buy own groceries, which seem like major hassle. Baby grow up handsome and with much charisma, but with eyes of unfathomable darkness. By age of 17, baby have many devout followers, which start you worried because after save baby, you're not much nice to it. For example, sometimes you forget baby's name, which is considered impolite for dad due to child. You roll out door and into street and all go black. 2 days later, you awake in hospital with pain surge through body. After long recovery, you return home with wooden finger, arm, and legs, but still you use wheelchair because it feels like racing game. When finally continue writing Bucket Detective, words flow out of you like water out of an upside-down cup. Within short time, book is finished and published and on many best book lists and selling like millions. With much success, you're finally getting young girls you've been want. Some even much too young, if you catch my meaning, but morality have never been your favorite subject. Wife, she cared for you whole time of recovery, but now best kick her out to make room for new girls. Meanwhile, major cities go up in flames and dark force take over world. Many are dying, many are infected with disease and psychosis and put into slavery, but you is not so interested. All you care do is roll in chair and make penis spit with pretty girls. Life is good. Life is good.
I'm sorry, my child. Though your devotion has been great, you have shown yourself to be a fake. Deliver yourself to the cage at the far end of the room, but do not despair. Your death will be slow and painful, and your loved ones will soon forget you.
After a few minutes in cage, you realize, oh dang, this door never going open, and you regret taking orders from voice in the sky. You find pen and paper and write final words, which is, I am dying here, but wish I wasn't. After that, you simply stare into space and think thoughts which is so insignificant, they're not even worth mentioning. You make no important realizations about your life, and is not even savoring last moments alive. After several hours of stare into space, you change final words to say, actually, it's okay to die, because I'm getting pretty bored. 6 days later, you get so thirsty, you go to sleep and don't wake up, and then you is dead. come all this way and cut apart body, but leave without get reward. As you crawl down street losing blood, you begin to question why I do these things to myself. And for first time in life, you realize, maybe I want pain, and I sabotage myself because I am scared to be happy. Maybe pervert sex demands on wife is to push her away because I am afraid to be intimate. You wake in hospital with wife at side, and she look absolutely beautiful. But if realizations is true, you must get rid of her fast before you accidentally become intimate. After breakup with wife, you find groups where pain and pervert sex are considered normal. And because you was willing to mutilate yourself, you quickly become most popular. After many years of mutilate, you was basically just face and vital organs, so girlfriend who is dominatrix must completely take care of you. One day, when she's cleaning desk, she finds notes for something called Bucket Detective. She asks you, "What is this?" And you answer truthfully, "I can't remember. Maybe it is some meaningless thing I never really cared about." This situation just not for you. Unsure if building too creepy or you just not like help anyone with anything, you go back home. You work more on Bucket Detective, but it no longer worth it when you find out some girls say yes to sex if given money. They not too pretty and one give poison to your bedroom parts, but they is pervert when paid enough. You sell desk and computer and car to pay for sex. You, a 41-year-old man,
Hi, welcome to the Bucket Detective Developers Commentary. I'm Jesse Barksdale. I did the art and the design and the writing for the game, and this commentary is going to be just, I guess, for anyone that's kind of interested in learning a bit more about the game or about how games in general are made. This is for you. So first things first, if you haven't played the game normally, I hope you're not listening to this developer's commentary, because there's definitely going to be some spoilers. You should also, I would say, play the game, get at least a few of the endings, if not all of them, because otherwise you're kind of going to be just experiencing the game and the endings in maybe a not ideal way. Also, I'm going to apologize for the audio quality of this commentary. I'm recording this on a mic in my room because I thought that if I was sitting in like a professional sound studio, like where we recorded all the other voiceover, that I would be incredibly stiff and unnatural and would sound like I was just reading from a page. So this is the compromise in order to make this sound kind of vaguely casual. So yeah, here we go. So just some general information about Bucket Detective. We made it in an engine called Unity, which is a pretty popular engine for indie game developers, and also it's pretty big with mobile. To give you an idea of some other games made in Unity, Hearthstone was made in Unity, Gone Home was made in Unity, Super Hot, Monument Valley, Firewatch. We did Unity 5.5. I did the most of the art. I would say 95% of the actual in-game art was made by me with 3D modeling software called Maya LT, which is like Maya is pretty big, like AAA modeling software, and I think they also use it in film as well. But Maya LT is like the indie version of that has some restrictions on it, but is also cheaper. So I did the models in Maya LT and another piece of software called Modo. And then I made the textures for all of the 3D models mostly in a program called Substance Designer and a little bit of Photoshop, and then used this program called Substance Painter, which is by the same people that make Substance Designer, to apply the textures, sort of fit them onto the models. And maybe I'll get a little bit more into actually how I made the art later. Basically, the game, I first started making the game back in like April 2015, like a really long time ago. But then my appendix ruptured at some point, and I was like in and out of hospitals for it was terrible for like 3 months. I had to get my appendix removed, and I spent like at least 2 weeks in a hospital. So the game kind of got delayed. And I was also working full-time at the time. I was working as a quality assurance person at Naughty Dog. And then I moved to Finland, where I started going to a master's program for game design. So basically, the game kind of started in April 2015. I started actually making it in about August 2015. And then that's about when I started school as well. And so I was kind of working on the game part-time and doing school part-time. And then also eventually I got a job making a part-time job making educational games, which is kind of funny. And so the game was I was just basically working on it whenever I had free time or whatever I could find days. And that's why it took so long to make the game, besides just games taking a really, really long time to make. Basically, after I made Static Speaks My Name and I put that up on Steam, and the game, I put that game up really just kind of hoping that like 100 people would play the game. That was my goal. That was like pretty much the first thing I ever released, and I was like, okay, if I can get like 100 people to play the game and give me feedback and tell me how this is, why this is terrible and not a game and all this stuff, that would be a success. So I released the game, and it did just so much better than I even could have imagined. I mean, at this point, I think 500,000 people have played the game, and it was, there's, I don't know, more than 20 million views on YouTube. I don't even honestly know how to count anymore, because there's just like tons of like 10 to 100,000 view videos, and then there's the big ones with like 6 million views and all that stuff. So anyway, I did this game, Static Speaks My Name, and then I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next, and I started a few sort of failed projects. I had sort of like a side scroller that I was working on for a little while. I had a very weird experimental puzzle game that I was working on with a guy over the internet, and then just kind of things that I thought were going to be interesting and then didn't turn out to be interesting, or it just didn't work out for whatever reason. So anyway, I was looking for a new game. I thought it'd be cool to do something sort of in a similar style, Static Speaks My Name, because that game was only 10 minutes long, and I thought, well, there's some cool, like, moody first-person exploration stuff I could do. So I was looking around for ideas, and I saw, actually, the original idea came from an episode of a TV show called Louie, which is like on FX and made by the guy Louis C.K. He's a comedian. And in that episode, there's an episode where he goes in and he's like comes home to his apartment building, and there's like an old woman stuck in an elevator, and she needs him to get medicine. She's like sick or diabetic or something, I can't really remember, but needs medicine, and she can't get out in time, so he has to go into her apartment to get her medicine. And I just remember, for whatever reason, thinking, well, that's kind of a cool, like, that's like the beginning of a game right there. You have some old woman trapped in an elevator, and you need to go get her medicine, and then you go up to the apartment. It was going to be kind of like a multi-chapter surreal thing. You were going to go up there, and you were going to get involved with this party, and I had some ideas which I may actually use in the future. Anyway, the game, though, I ended up sort of, as ideas normally happen, you have sort of a seed of an idea, and then you kind of follow it, and it goes in a whole different direction. So, but what's interesting is that, the elevator sort of was always a thing. I don't know why I just thought putting something in an elevator, because actually I think in the original version of the game, you at some point try and help the woman get out of the elevator, and it ends up crushing her, cutting her in half or something like that. And so that was, I guess, the seed of the idea, was someone dying in an elevator, which obviously still made it into the game. The narrator of the game, who narrates the intro cinematics and the ending cinematics, is voiced by me, Jesse Barksdale. I wanted to do this, like, I don't live in America right now, and I needed to do a voiceover, and it kind of always bothers me when you hear, like, there's like a voiceover done by like someone who's obviously not a native English speaker but trying to be a native English speaker, like a French person who's like trying to do like a Brooklyn accent or something. It's just like a weird, it just feels very weird. And so I wanted to avoid doing that, because I knew that I was going to not be in America and need to hire someone, but I didn't want to just make like a normal sounding American English voiceover and then cast like a non-American. So I thought, well, if I did it in this kind of like weird, fake, broken English almost sounding thing, it would work better. And then I could end up casting someone who wasn't a native English speaker, and you would just think, oh, this is, I don't know, it just felt kind of like interesting and surreal. It ended up that I did the voiceover, so I could have written some American English thing, but I think it like I said, it felt interesting and surreal. It also fits with sort of the theme of the game of being like a bad writer. It's sort of written in bad prose. Then also I'm not a very good actor, so I don't think I could have done something particularly dynamic. Like, it was good for me to be able to like do like a sentence that's like, book is not good, and not have to have a range of emotions. Like, I definitely couldn't have played Gwen Sleeveless, who's actually a human. The animations for cutting the finger, the hand, and the legs were one of the big things of in-game art that I didn't do. I am not a very good character artist or animator, and so I had a friend of mine named the drawings for the intro and ending cutscenes. Those were originally, I was going to do the art for those as well, because I guess it's sort of the way they're drawn right now is basically in sort of the style that I kind of naturally draw in, because I don't actually really have much real drawing ability. I can kind of only draw ugly people. But yeah, so originally I was going to draw those. It just ended up, already this game with me doing or the majority of the art in the game, and doing the design and doing the writing and being the project lead and having to just manage so many things. Already the game was biting off way more than I really should have been taking on. So to do these drawings on top of it, I just knew I was going to burn myself out, and I was afraid I wasn't going to finish. My intention with the puzzles, and I don't know if I succeeded, but this was my original goal at least, was to make them be challenging but not hard, and not too intellectual, because basically I feel like it's a problem a lot of times in games for me, when you're playing a game and you're kind of like really enjoying like just the beauty of the world, or you're interested in the story, reading the lore or whatever, and then you get these just very highly analytical, intellectual puzzles that sort of just completely take you out of the game and the world that you're existing in. And I kind of think that, like, your emotional brain and your intellectual puzzle-solving brain are two separate parts, and that you can't sort of fully experience one while experiencing the other. So I never wanted the puzzles to be like really, really complex and hard. I really enjoy making books and book titles for games. I sort of always have a running list of titles that I think are funny or interesting, and then try and work them into different games. I was in New Orleans at a rare bookshop or something, just checking out the books there, and I saw this book which was basically like when good fellows gather or something like that. This very like 1950s, like, we are white men who get together, and what do us white men talk about? And I just thought that was such a weird book that you just totally would not see published today, and that kind of it got me thinking, and I guess was some of the inspiration for some of these books here. Just thinking about what like a proper, a man from the 1890s who was a man of science and history, but also just like a misogynist, racist kind of guy. But at a time when it was like you weren't even misogynistic or racist for thinking that way. That was just like the way things were done. So you would have these books that were written about like, like here, a guide to discussing the lesser races. That's like, that was just very weird and, disturbing and surreal. A brief history of the vagina, a man's perspective. Again, just so like that a book would be written about a vagina from as if the man's opinion was more important or something. I felt like these books really explained the character in a nice way. I don't know how many people actually ever read the book titles, but I put a lot of work into thinking of them, so I thought it'd be worth mentioning. The music in the game was done by a guy named Sean Jones. He did the music for The Static Speaks My Name. He's based in Austin, Texas. Or maybe somewhere outside of Austin, I guess now. But he's an American guy. And I just had worked with him doing The Static Speaks My Name. I thought the music turned out really well for that. I mean, I remember a lot of the comments about The Static Speaks My Name was that, the music was one of the best parts, which I agree with. I think it really, that game relies a lot on the music. So he did 3 songs for this game. He did the song for the cinematics. He did a song for the theater/crypt room, the green room. I made the art for the game. Like I said before, I made probably 95% of the actual in-game art, if not more. I'm not sure like the exact percent, but I made all the floors, the rugs, the walls, the ceilings, the light fixtures, the Gwen boxes, the doors, just basically all the stuff that you see in the game and interact with was made by me. So like I said before, I made that in my LT and Moto, and I did the textures primarily in Substance Designer. So I'll get a little bit into that, because one of the reasons I want to do this commentary is that I grew up watching, like, I'm 30 years old, so I was like of the DVD era basically, and I just used to love hearing directors' commentaries about like all the little details of like how they would frame the shots, how they would, get actors to agree to be in their movie and all that. So I kind of figured like there's not that much of that kind of stuff for games. So if there's some game developers out there that are 15 years old or, 50 years old, but just kind of wanting to learn more about making games, figured I could like provide some jump starts of things for them to get interested in. So I'll talk about Substance Designer first, because that's like, if you're interested in making game art, oh my god, pick up Substance Designer. It is so cool. So basically, if you know anything about art, like maybe you know a little bit about Photoshop, you've done some Photoshop before, in that you basically kind of like create layers and draw on stuff. And Substance Designer works in a totally different way. It is very professional software, but you can pick up a copy of Substance Designer for $100. It is what a lot of AAA studios use, but it's priced in a way that if you're an indie or just a hobbyist, you can pick up a copy. There's also, you can get a free 30-day trial, as I recall. So Substance Designer works, it's like a node-based software. So what that means is you basically have, it's kind of hard to explain node-based software like just in audio, but you basically have these different parameters. And like a parameter, like imagine a parameter that's like a checkerboard looking thing, and then you can plug that element into another thing which takes like the information of the checkerboard and then applies some effect to it. And then you take that affected checkerboard and plug that into something else, which then maybe applies a color to it. And you take that and that applies some kind of effect on top of that, or morphs it or warps it or something like that. And what's so powerful about that is that you can basically start with this base idea, which would be your checkerboard, and you can turn that checkerboard into Z-fighting. If you look down at the corner of this wall where the two walls meet each other at like the railing, the top of the railing, and walk back and forth, you can see there's that little square there that's flickering. That is known as Z-fighting. I'm sure you've seen that in lots of games before. Maybe you know what it is, maybe you don't, just in case. It's kind of interesting. So now you can look at a game and go, oh, that's Z-fighting. I remember learning about that. Basically what's going on there is you have two objects which are so close to each other, or exactly in the exact same place in the game world, that the game doesn't know which is on top. So it basically is flipping back and forth and sort of rendering them on top of each other. You'll see this also like a lot of times, it's not so common I guess anymore, but like in slightly older games, if there's a poster that's a poster on the wall, as you get further away from it, you'll notice that the wall and the poster will start to kind of flicker back and forth in each other. Basically what's happening is now as you get farther away, the way that the game judges depth sort of changes. It's kind of compressing the depth so that something that's a quarter of an inch off of a wall is suddenly, in the math of the game engine, is considered in the same location or close enough of a location that it doesn't, again, know which to draw on top. And so now when you see that in the game, you can turn to your friend and explain to them that that's Z-fighting, and they will think that you're very intelligent. Oh, and I should also add that when your friend asks you, well, why is it called Z-fighting, you can explain that game coordinates are, in a 3D game, explained with X, Y, and Z. So X is typically left and right, Y is up and down, and Z is typically depth. So it's an issue here with depth, hence Z-fighting. The biggest piece of advice I can give to you, the thing that sucked more of my time than anything, that was the biggest time waster, was that I did not create this game on a grid. I didn't create the art or do the level design originally on a grid. And what I mean by that is that, so Unity doesn't have a built-in grid. So you actually have to, or it doesn't have built-in grid snapping. And basically a grid is, if you imagine the world is just a fluid space. Bucket Detective is actually, it's actually a pretty performance-intensive game. And that's not because we're like pushing the bounds of technology or anything like, The Witcher 3. Unfortunately, it's actually, I mean, it's a result of a lot of things, but there are some kind of newbie mistakes that were made primarily by me that I'll share with you guys, just to sort of educate you if you've never made a game of this size before, like I had, because I had done the Static Speaks My Name, and it was a very small game. That was the biggest game I'd done, but it was very small, so I didn't really have a lot of the issues that we ended up running into on this one. One of the biggest ones is that we didn't use what are called texture atlases. Now, you see in the game there's a lot of wood and there's a lot of like brass. There's a certain amount of brass, and there's also like that white of the wall paint. Those are probably our most common elements. The wood especially is in basically like, 50% of the objects in the game. And what I did is we like instead of having the way you're supposed to do it is you create this thing called a texture atlas. And a texture atlas is like, imagine a 4K image that's split into like 4 parts. So there's like 4 quadrants. And in each of those quadrants,
I'm sorry, my child.
you've got a different texture.
Devotion
So
has
like
been
you'd have
great.
wood,
You have
you'd
shown
have
yourself to be a
brass,
fake.
you'd have
Deliver
the
yourself
white
to
of
the
the
cage at the
wall,
far
and you
end
have
of the
maybe the
room.
green carpet.
But do not despair.
And when
Your
you're
death will be
applying
slow and painful,
textures
and your
to
loved
your
ones will
models,
soon
you're not
forget
actually making a different texture or material for every object, but you're pulling from that same texture. That way you only have to load this one texture in to the memory and create a material for it, and then put that on the objects. You get this one texture to do a lot of work, so that the wood that you see on a bookcase and a wardrobe and the wall and a picture frame is all the same wood as far as the computer is concerned. We did not do that. I did not know about that. So there's a different texture for the stairs and for the walls and for the wardrobe, even though they use a lot of the same sort of wood texture. We have different materials created for them. And I should explain, I'm using kind of textures and materials interchangeably here, but a material is basically what Unity calls the thing that you apply to a model. So a material is actually made up of textures. Textures are, in the case of Unity, texture is an image file, a 2D image file, which would be like, some color information. And then you would also have another texture, which would be a normal map, which is an image which tells the game how to render light and shadow. Like you see, like they kind of also used to be known as like bump maps. It's what gives like the little bumps or cracks or something that you'll see on a wall or on a concrete floor or something. Anyway, so a material is made up of textures, and so I'm using them interchangeably, but if you have a lot of textures, you probably have a lot of materials in Unity. So anyway, we have just too many materials and textures, which kind of ends up chugging the game, sort of making it more intensive than it needs to be. Ultimately, the game does run okay. I mean, we have on my friend's MacBook lighting. It's the kind of thing where if you haven't made a lot of games before, haven't made a lot of stuff before, I think you undervalue the importance of lighting. It's something I definitely undervalued during the development. Gwen Sleeveless. Originally, Gwen Sleeveless was going to be an actual Gwen Sleeveless. Originally, Gwen Sleeveless was going to be an actual character in the game. You were going to back when, if you heard about how the game was going to be about you getting medicine for this woman in an elevator. Originally, Gwen was going to be some guy that I think I can't even remember what the joke was. I did a bunch of different versions of these flies. Originally, I had the fly mesh, which is basically just a little cube with some triangle wings, and I animated it by hand. So like I was on a vacation in I think it was Stockholm, and I was visiting some kind of palace, former palace, or someplace where nobles would go have dinner or something. And I remember the decoration there. They had all these plates and forks and stuff up on the wall. They're eating utensils, and I just thought that was it kind of made sense until you started thinking about it, and then I just kind of couldn't get over how weird that was. It's why would you put your plates up on the wall? Because surely you don't actually take them down and use them, or so they just have these decorative plates for show. And at that time I was Bucket Detective. The game was the level design was basically done, but the game felt very empty, so I was looking for things to put on the wall, and I kind of needed stuff like paintings that I could duplicate a bunch of and have them sort of do little variations of them to fill up a bulk of a bunch of the walls. And I just thought, well, that's kind of a funny thing that feels right. So I ended up putting plates and forks and spoons on the wall. And then, of course, at some point I thought, well, it'd be funny if some of the spoons were missing, and then Gwen was putting up a note, asking for who's taking the spoons, and that became a little joke, and then that seemed like it would make sense as an achievement, just a kind of a funny little thing to have to go find the spoons that had been being removed from the wall because I guess the spoons in the kitchen were dirty or something like that. Cultists in here, I didn't create them either, but we were able to use a piece of software called Fuse, which I think now it's owned by Adobe. I guess it's Adobe Fuse, but it's kind of like, if in Skyrim or just any RPG where there's a lot of character creation tools, it's an extremely, or I actually shouldn't say extremely deep, but it's a relatively deep tool like that for creating characters for games, and we use that to create these kind of generic male characters, and also the woman that you see on the ground there. I use that pretty much, as far as I can tell, unless you're a AAA studio or you're wanting to make a human that doesn't look like a standard realistic human, at this point there's basically no reason for you to ever by hand model a human. There are thousands, if not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of human models available, naked, with long arms, with big boobs, small boobs, tall necks, anything you want. So if I could give you a tip, if you don't have much money, don't spend time modeling characters. There's a website called Mixamo where you can get animations, and not that there is still a need, I think, to do custom animations because there's obviously an almost infinite variety of animations that you could get. But we were able to, for the cultist that pushes you if you haven't taken off your clothes yet, that animation, and it's funny actually, it was a wizard casting a fireball spell animation that I took, and I cut off the front and the back ends of it and made it sort of passable as someone being shoved animation, which now if you go back and look at it, I'm sure you'll be able to tell that it's sort of a spell casting animation. But anyway, there's a lot of human 3D models out there, so I would recommend looking for existing assets before you set out to create your own. In general, I would recommend that. That's probably something I probably created a little bit too much by hand, though I think it was justified because it was also a big learning project for me. So I feel glad that I know how to do this stuff. But anyway, the whole point of that was that Mikhail created this baby model for us because, I don't know if it's surprising to you or not, but there are not actually that many good video game ready baby meshes. So I looked online and I could find really nothing that would work, even stuff I was willing to pay for. So we had to do that by hand and have him animate it and everything, which is cool because we got to do it to our exact specs and everything. But it's just, you don't really see many games that even have babies in them that you can pick up. There's maybe, I don't know how many there are, but just a handful probably. So we weren't able to rely on pre-existing assets for that.
The thing that sucks about pain is that it hurts, so you decide to leave before you get any more. When arrive home, wife asks why you was missing body parts, but you not tell her because, seriously, why women always need to talk so much. You work more on Bucket Detective, but it no longer worth it when you find out some girls say yes to sex if given money. They not too pretty, and one give poison to your bedroom parts, but they is pervert when paid enough. You sell desk and computer and car to pay for sex, but after several months, things to sell run out. Wife, of course, she gone by now, and you realize maybe you like her more than you thought. On TV there is talk of great war that is coming, but oh well, best not to pay attention to things that not completely have to do with you.